Okay, here we go. How do you know who to listen to? How do you know who to trust? That is not an easy decision. That is not an easy thing to know. We have a rare opportunity to know about that now, and it is afforded to us by a tragedy that happened this weekend. So let's get into this a little bit. For those of you who listen to me consistently, you are probably aware that certainly lately, more than usually, I'm speaking about different things that might not be directly related to my mission. If you don't know me, I'm Dr. David Rendelstein. Uh, my training is in chiropractic. I have a business called FinTech Weight Loss and Nutrition. I help people lose weight and get healthier as a result. But I've been doing this for many years. I've been having these conversations on Facebook, sometimes with my staff, sometimes solo. Lately, I've started to talk about different things. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. One of them is simply because I have to keep myself interested. Uh, I can only talk about carbohydrates so much. By this point, we're all aware that sugar is not good for us. So I have to talk about some other things, but there's also the fact that when it comes to achieving weight loss, achieving health, any worthwhile endeavor, there's more to it than just the technical things about what you do. Okay, there's the why you do it. There are the things that affect your ability to make rational decisions. And we have to talk about that. And I've stated on occasion that I don't want to be the weight loss science guy. I don't want to be the weight loss rah-rah guy. I would like to be the implementation guy. Okay, the guy that helps you execute. And that's why we get into these things. It is not news that when we are talking about weight loss, we have to look at it in a holistic way because the mind comes into play. Our environment comes into play. It's why I have created this test. Some of you have taken it. It's called the Thin Test. And it's really a holistic look, right? About the factors that will affect your ability to lose weight. So including metabolism, including environment, including motivation, including understanding, including all of these different factors. So this is how we tend to take a look at things. And this is why I talk about some things that, again, are more tangentially related than directly. But of course, we can't forget the main purpose. So I have a rule with this. And it's a rule I've described to people who I've had conversations with who come on. And it's one I am hoping to stick to myself. And that is simply this, that we can go as far afield as we want to. But eventually we have to funnel it back down into what's useful, into what's practical, and into what's empowering for people who are listening. So you get something from it. It's not just discussing things just to discuss it. Okay, so that is, I guess, why, and that's kind of laying the foundation for what I am going to talk about today. As it turns out, a couple of the things that I've discussed within the last, I would say, month have sort of come together, have sort of congealed in a way. And these are the topics of anxiety, of people who create anxiety purposely. We'll call them merchants of chaos, and also timing. Now, we discussed that part of the reason that anxiety exists, especially these days, maybe more so than other days, is because people are incentivized to create anxiety within us. Anxiety is a good motivator. You know, whether it be politicians who want you to vote for them and so convince you that everything's going to go to hell unless you vote for them, or it be pundits on TV or on the internet who are also like just pumping kind of danger into your veins. If they could, they would help you mainline it. They would put, some kind of, they'd have that bag of fluid that they would attach and just put it directly into your blood vessels, right? Because people tend to pay more attention to when their anxiety is at a higher level, right? So anxiety is created purposely by people who have an incentive or an agenda. There are other people who might not be creating it purposely, but maybe for reasons of their own worldview, or I don't know, just lack of discipline in speaking, they will also create anxiety, right? We had this event come this weekend. When was it? Friday night? Saturday night? Seems like a long time ago now. But the former president was shot. Former President Trump was shot, almost killed. And something very, very predictable happened. Something that anyone who has been paying attention knew would happen. Which is that within about 15 seconds, there were all kinds of theories about it. I mean, had you immediately sat down and written out all of the possible theories that would come out, it's happened. Anything from, it was an inside job, it was Antifa, George Soros supplied the bullets, Trump did it purposely to get elected, anything, the kid was radicalized in a, what do they call it? A madrasa in the Middle East. I mean, anything you could think of, any theory came out. Now, also, if you're a reasoning person, you might say to yourself, why? Why is it necessary that within 15 seconds of this tragic event, all of these theories had to come out? The people who were proffering these theories, let's be frank, don't know shit. They don't know anything. Like, what is the benefit of coming up with all of this stuff immediately? What is stopping people from, just taking some deep breaths and waiting for some data to come out and then perhaps forming an opinion? Is that too difficult? Is it just easier to have an opinion already? And no matter what happens, you just kind of, put it into that channel, put it into some kind of machine that you've already got going, and then it comes out the way you want it. I feel like people have done that. Now, let me just say this. To the credit of a lot of people, they have been advocating for bringing down the temperature. This is one of those expressions that you'll hear echoed. We need to bring down the temperature. A lot of people have done that. A lot of people in the public eye have done that. And of course, some have not. I would submit that a good guide to know who to listen to might be the speed and the emotion with which they are speaking now following this thing. To speak when you really don't know anything, what is the purpose? At the least, it's stupid and ill-advised. At the most, it's agendizing, and it's trying to convince people of something and trying to arouse their emotions. For what purpose? Are we lacking passionate emotion in this country of late? What is the benefit to do that? Of course, they'll tell you they're truth tellers. Anyone who's engaging in this type of rhetoric, they're truth tellers. They want you to understand They don't understand themselves. They know nothing. And I'm always amazed and not a little bit impressed by the fact that people are so convicted in their opinions when they know nothing. They don't let it stop them. Some of us would be ashamed. You know, ask me my opinion on trigonometry. Huh? I'm completely agnostic. I know nothing about trigonometry. And that is what people should say when they know nothing. I know nothing. I have not formed an opinion. Maybe let me look at it and I'll get back to you. But we see that people with an agenda do not do that. This word rhetoric that we all hear a lot, and some of us say it a lot without really knowing what it means, but it's persuasive talk. And people will reveal themselves also by their rhetoric, right? If someone is employing rhetoric, it means that they are trying to persuade you of something. And there are a lot of stupid things that people say that are said for rhetorical purposes. There's nothing wrong with rhetoric in the sense that it's fine to persuade people or attempt to persuade people. But again, very often it has to do with their agenda. So here's an example of a stupid rhetorical trick. We've all heard of the term rhetorical questions, right? So again, these are questions designed to persuade. Now, it is a fine rhetorical device, questions. It can get people to think. Why did such and such happen? That's an okay thing to do, but there are also stupid rhetoricals. And I'll give you an example. And I guess a stupid rhetorical when there's a pretty available answer, right? So, a stupid rhetorical would be like, why was that man standing by the door all night? Why was he guarding the door all night? What was going on inside? Well, actually, ma'am, he's the doorman. He gets paid to stand there all night. I mean, it's that order of ridiculousness that we will see sometimes from people asking these rhetorical questions. They squint their eyes, they arch their brows. I mean, they're not even questions, really. They are statements phrased as questions. Okay? If kale is so great, how come potato chips are more popular? Right? The subtext there being, the suggestion being that, well, kale's not great. It can't be good for you because more people want potato chips. I mean, it's stupid what people will conflate. And the statements they'll make in the form of a question, they think they're so astute. But it's absurd rhetoric is what it is. It's absurd persuasive speech from people who have most likely formed an opinion before they know anything. Now, that is not the only rhetorical device employed by people. There are others. But you can tell people with an agenda, merchants of chaos, you can tell who they are in part by their rhetorical devices, including rhetorical questions. Okay, innuendo, right? Suggesting things, just asking questions, just putting it out there. How about this one? How about generalizations? I immediately stop listening to someone when they say they. Okay? They shot the president. Okay. Who are they? Someone shot the president. Shot at the president. Well, hit the president. So yes, someone shot the former president. Sorry. Yeah. Was it they? Or is that part of their stuff, right? We all have stuff. Is that part of their stuff? Paranoia, again, so a certain kind of a worldview that they're trying to suck you into, creating anxiety. Maybe they're anxious. They want you to resonate at that same level of anxiety, which is a funny thing that people do, right? Notice fearful people want you to be fearful. Angry people want you to be angry. And this is not necessarily an evil intent. It's just kind of where they are. So I would suggest that the U.S. is a bad team right now. When I watch games on television, which I do, it's no secret that I am a sports fan, because I reference it pretty much every time I speak, right? But of course, sports are the perfect metaphor for the rest of life. What I've noticed about bad teams is that when things get tough, they don't stick together. They start trying to do things individually, and they point the fingers. I would say that based on that criterion, the United States right now is not a good team. We have been in the past. Think about this. When we've had tragedies in the past, when we've had challenges in the past, we were more likely to come together against a common enemy. 1979, there were a bunch of hostages taken in Iran. And it created more of a closeness. 9/11, obviously that happened. People became kinder to one another. There was more of a group identification and feel, not less. That's changed of late. COVID did not bring us together. It did in some ways, right? There were a lot of lovely things that happened during COVID. But for the most part, it created that response that you see in the bad teams. A lot of finger pointing, a lot of blame, a lot of demonizing, right? So I don't know going forward what the outcome is going to be of this particular event. I think a lot of people are saying the right things now. I have a feeling it's going to get worse. I suggested this a few weeks ago. I said the anxiety that's being created now has a lot to do with the fact that we are in the middle of an election cycle. It will get worse. The saving grace right now is summer. During the summer, people will only take things so seriously because it's the summer. It's not real life. It's a break. It's going on vacation and, to the beach and whatnot. Once that ends, real life returns and we get closer to this election. The rhetoric will ramp up. I believe. I hope not. But I believe the rhetoric and the demonization, the anger, the recriminations, they will increase. That has been the experience lately. This battle that people are fighting that was always fought in a different way, right? It was less of a blood feud. But again, we had this event and all of a sudden you had people coming out with all these theories. And saying bad, in my judgment, and really silly things. People I know, I saw someone that I know put something somewhere, and I just think it is terribly, terribly silly, especially in the absence of knowing things. So the question then becomes, how do we become good teammates again? Because that's what we're supposed to be, right? We're the United States of America. We're the best team. Historically, we're the Yankees. We are IBM when IBM was IBM. You know, how do we become good teammates again? I think it starts with less rhetoric and with less reaction, more knowledge. There's a quote that I've said before on here, and it's be curious, not judgmental. I think that's it exactly, but that's the sentiment anyway. And so we've replaced curiosity, finding out things, a desire for knowledge and truth, with reactivity and rhetoric. And it gets worse during tough times instead of better. The good teams get closer and are less likely to point fingers during the tough times. It's exactly the opposite. And maybe it's natural. It's more natural to do it during tough times. But that nature must be defied if we are to be a good team again. There's another point I wanted to make. Oh, okay. When we were talking about rhetoric, we were also we talked about generalizations. I said this, the third person plural pronoun, they, right? Which one side of the aisle uses in one way that's incomprehensible and the other side uses in a different way. But the generalization, the generalizing, the saying they, as in they did it. It's accusatory. You don't know who actually did it, but you know it's they. That's a problem. That's a way that I believe people identify their own BS. Now, if people are not generalizing in that way, if they're not saying they did it, what are they doing? Well, they're being specific. And they're being specific based on knowledge. It's not like, you know, Joe did it. Well, how do you know Joe did it? I just know he did. No, that's absurd. You know, it involves attribution. According to his wife and his daughter, Joe shot the man in the chest and then ran away. Right? Now, could there be a mistake? Could there be a lie somewhere, etc.? Yes. But there's attribution, there's specificity. This is another way you know if people have an agenda and if they are merchants of chaos. Not all people who do this are, right? Again, some people are just kind of revealing their own BS. But imagine this. Imagine we all strived. Is it strived or strove? If you know the answer, please write it down. Send it. Imagine that everybody endeavored to be very specific and to attribute things. How much better would things be? And then imagine we did not stand for people, especially people in the public eye, who did not do that. And we called out people who did not do that. Okay? So in other words, somebody says something, they make an accusation, there's innuendo, there's conjecture. Well, how do you know that? Where did you hear that? Where's the corroboration? It amazes me the degree to which so-called journalists don't use these things that we know that they're supposed to use, i.e. specificity, attribution, corroboration. They have written standards about these things. Now, of course, these days, everybody with a microphone and a camera can call themselves a journalist, right? Everyone has an opinion. Opinions have been democratized. which is great on the one hand. On the other hand, you're going to get some static on the line, right? But again, imagine that we did not do that. Imagine, just as a thought experiment, you lined up 10 people and you asked them about what happened the other night. Okay? Very simple question, as straightforward as it could be. What happened the other night regarding, the former president at his rally? And one person said, well, okay, so person A said, okay, well, the president wanted to be reelected, so they arranged for a gunman to shoot him in the ear, to give him a flesh wound. And you said, okay, next. You're not one to be listened to. Right? Because you don't know, and you were very generalized about it, right? Then you had the next person. Okay, what happened the other night? Well, it was the deep state. George Soros pulled the trigger. Okay, well, how do you know that? I just know it. Okay, next. All right. Third person, person C. What happened the other night? Well, the former president during a rally was apparently shot, as reported by, these certain outlets. He was hit in the ear. It was also reported that the young man who did it was himself killed. Thank you. You can be listened to. You made efforts to be responsible in your communication. You included no conjecture. You used attributions. Right? There was nothing else other than what you know pretty much for sure. That's what we need. That kind of level of responsibility, that level of being a good teammate. This person is just relaying the communication to the best of their knowledge without trying to inflame any passions. And in my estimation, that's being a good teammate. So how does this then filter down and funnel into you and your life? Well, anxiety, stress is at the root of all health problems. Stress is unavoidable. We would not want to live life without stress. There's an interesting story. I guess it's a metaphor or a parable or something. And it's about a guy who dies and his life is perfect. Anything he wants, he gets. He has no challenges. He has nothing to overcome, no problems. And at one point, he gets so frustrated by this, he says to God, he's like, I have no problems. I have nothing to do. I can't win. I can't overcome anything. This is horrible. I didn't think heaven would be anything like this. And God says to him, well, what makes you so sure you're in heaven? So we need stress, we need problems, right? Too much of it can crush us. Okay? Too much of it, especially when there's the idea or the apparency that it cannot be overcome, can crush us, can put us into a state of apathy, can make us want to curl up into a fetal position or feel like we cannot affect anything. It can change our chemistry, increase a hormone called cortisol, the stress hormone, cause health problems. So we have to be able to identify stressors, anxiety, and we have to be able to do something about it. We have to know something about it to be able to do something about it. We have to be able to see it coming, to know when to laugh something off. Someone tells you that JFK was shot by JFK Jr. Okay, I mean, that's a theory. You know, the boy was what, 4 years old. We can be pretty sure it didn't happen, right? But it's important to be able to identify, distinguish what's ridiculous, what's not ridiculous, what's just pure conjecture, agendizing. If we can do that, and like I said, if we can also question the person, maybe without being a pain in the ass, maybe not, we can kind of form a bubble around ourselves so that all that stress doesn't get inside, and we can live healthier, more effective lives. Okay. So I think that's it for today. Hope this was useful. As I said, it will likely get worse as we continue on towards November. There will be more theories. There will be more breathless reactions. There will be more inflaming of emotions, or at least attempts to do so. There will be more accusations. It's absurd. But we have to have the tools to combat it. All right? That's it. Take care. I'll see you next week.